of us come to this beautiful country we call home with stars in our eyes in the hope of making it big. Some of us succeed, while many don't. But we can all agree that Australia is one of the safest and the most beautiful places in the world. And the place from where I am chatting with my guest, Melbourne, is consistently voted as one of the most livable cities in the world. Hi, I'm Saleha Singh, and this is Chai Chat and Community. Meet Rashid Khan, the founder and CEO of Evacovation, an Australian based company specializing in emergency response management. If that is a mouthful, then Rashid will explain what he does. His journey from Pakistan to Australia, coupled with his innovative approach to emergency management, offers a valuable insight for the South Asian community. Thank you for joining me, Rashid.
Thank you so much for having me, Salia.
Pleasure is all mine. And before we start, can you please tell us something about yourself, along with your journey from Pakistan to Australia and how your early experiences influenced what you are today?
First of all, thank you so much for having me in your show. It's lovely concept. I love that chai chat. It's actually chai
I,
chat in community, but
yeah,
we have
I
some of
hope you
this.
have, I know. I hope you have your chai after iftar. You must be needing your chai because I do
Yes.
all the time.
Yeah, me too. And it's a beautiful concept to have. Chai is a wonderful part of our lives. Well, where I came from, chai is a very common culture, and it is like embedded culture within our bloodlines now, kind of we can say. I'm from Pakistan, and I came to Australia in 2005. Before that, I used to work in database administration, so I came from the background of IT. As I landed in Australia, it took me a bit to get to my feet, and then I started working in one of the top banks in Australia within the databases, and from databases, the journey continued on. What bring me to Australia was that starting something fresh, starting something new. I am one of the youngest in my family, and when I was about to come here, my dad asked me, "What makes you go there?" And I said, "I wanted to make a life where I have a complete freedom of making my own choices." And that was quite resonating with my dad. And I said, "Yeah, here you go. You got the playground there, and then you go and experiment and make your own life." Quite a hard decision to make at the age of 25 when I came here, because when I came, there was hardly any person I knew. Australia being a beautiful and a wide land with a very small population, and where I came from, there's people everywhere,
Yeah.
um, and those values of knowing people around you was the first thing I started to miss, and that there is not many people to talk to. Yes, people are very, very friendly, but you need to start those conversations from somewhere.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
communication is a key in as in any relationship, in any community, in any society. Communication is the key. So I worked in the bank for a couple of years before I promoted to a role which led me to a beautiful journey of evacuation.
Excellent. And the story, what you just shared about you is all our migrant stories, isn't it? I mean, when we came, I came with two young girls. My husband and I did not know a soul, and we had to start from the scratch because, like I was telling you earlier, you're either underqualified or overqualified. So you start from the scratch and then you build. And we came around the same time that you did, 20 years. So it's been a similar journey, except you were 25, we were much older, and starting from the bottom, and now wherever we are today.
Yeah.
So, what inspired you to establish Evacuation, and how did your personal experience shape the mission? And this I've taken from your website because your mission says, your website, on your website, your mission is to save lives and manage emergencies with the most effective, efficient, and technologically advanced solutions through continuous improvement during emergency, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So emergencies can occur anytime, and
Yeah.
Being a very child at the age of 9, I have seen an emergency firsthand. I have seen an ammunition depot caught on fire in my city, Rawalpindi. I'm from Rawalpindi city,
Wow.
and that ammunition depot had those untriggered missiles and missile cases sitting in that depot, which triggered, and when they triggered, they took 182 lives. More than 1,000 people also got injured. And being a child, I was at home that day, and there was a school in front of me, a primary school. And in that moment of, I didn't know what I could call that moment. Um, I just went and started guiding those young kids. I was only 9 years old, and I started those young kids from primary school, and I guided 18 kids to safety. I think that safety thing was already embedded in me, and then later that school was also hardly hit by those missile cases. So from a very young child, I think that was kind of being embedded by me, by my family, that we should do something for others, it's especially in an emergency. So that emergency concept was already in me. When I was made emergency manager for one of the top four banks in Australia, I think that kind of realigned with what I really should do in life. And slowly I was trying to figure out what is good within that space, what I can do better to make these emergency management more effective and take away those, small delays in communication. So I started working on that communication delays and what can we do to cut them down. And evacuation as a concept came out, and I started sharing with my very close friends who are in emergency management and response systems, and they were very happy that I came with this solution, and I started working on that solution. And I truly believe that that mission of ours to save lives can be achieved if we deploy the right communication and cut down those communication gaps. Because if you do cut down 2 seconds out of one process, and there's 10 sub processes in there, you save 20 seconds. 20
Of
seconds
course.
are good enough to save someone's life.
Wow. Every day I learn something new. Um, so I remember when you and I were chatting earlier, which was a few weeks ago, you told me about your apps that you built. So I want to
Yes.
know how does your app enable better coordination between users and emergency services? And let's talk about, I think I asked you this when we were chatting. I mean, the fire danger has gone, but that is so real for us, and also floods. Queensland, what they are going through at the moment. So give us examples. And I work with examples because I understand when you say this is what my app does when this happens and this is what you can do. So that kind of example, if you can share, please.
Absolutely. With evacuation, the main aim is to do the right communication and with the right hierarchy. And because in an emergency, the first thing which breaks down in any emergency, I always say that, it's communication. And Australia being one of the best countries who are best prepared to deal with emergencies. When we're talking about the early warning systems, we got efficient early warning systems in place. It's like the one we have just seen, the Alfred, which came to northern New South Wales, and it has hit the Queensland.
Yeah.
The early warning system was already there a couple of days ago, so the people knew what is coming, so they can prepare, they can have the sandbags ready for the floods if there's a flood warning attached to that. The energy companies was already ready. They started doing those microgriddings to make sure that they got enough electricity for the areas which get hit. So for preparedness index, Australia sits at number 4 in the world on preparedness for emergencies.
Wow. Wow.
And the interesting fact about Queensland, that it sits number 1 in the world on emergency preparedness index. It's the number 1 state, and they are my number 1 client as well, by the way. Uh, um, so with emergency preparedness, we got state emergency services, we got emergency management. Victoria, in talking about the Victorian side right now, we got fire rescue, we got responders, we got ambulance, we got hospitals, we got all of those sectors are really well prepared for any emergency. So that's why we say preparedness is the key. But when it comes to the internal communication within the buildings, that's where I saw the gap. That's where I see that the communication, if you're living in an apartment or if you're living in a building, if you're working in a building, that communication only happens through 100 years old system. The system is really good, it's effective, but with the passage of time, with the passage of technology, I think that can be
That's
improved.
outdated.
I won't say it's outdated, but I would say it can be improved. There's a lot of
Okay.
improvement which can be made through that, and that's why I am a strong believer of using the technology for the right things. And we live in the area, in the era
Yes.
as well, where we live almost a
On our
hand,
phones. Yes.
just a hand length away from our phones every night. So if you want to manage emergency, I think that's the best tool we have, which you don't need to invest anything extra into the tool. You just develop the application which works effectively and communicate between the people who are responders and the people who needs those advices. So if you connect the hierarchy through the app, and that's what we have done within evacuation, we connected the hierarchy. So the people who are responding and the people who are the effectees of an emergency, they can all communicate through just one single band. And they already know the processes. The processes are embedded in the app. So they don't need to rethink about so many things. They just know what needs to be done because the app is telling them to.
Yeah.
And the app is so evolved in a way. We have put artificial intelligence there, we put the blockchain in there, we put a lot of recent technologies to make sure that it is competing with the world standards. And then it's as if the data is evolving on this end, the communication with the effectees are evolving, and as they getting more communications, the processes are improving every single time, and that's what we're
So,
trying to achieve.
okay. So, give me an example. You said Queensland is your biggest client, and I can understand why.
Yeah.
During the Alfred, give us a real time example that your app helped. As I said, I understand with examples. So,
Yeah. So the communication between the state emergency services, or you can call Queensland Fire and Emergency
yeah,
Services, it
yeah,
was the basic responder of that event. I will call an event or incident. With that event, the communication has already gone to all the buildings, and the buildings knew that now the wind is going to increase from between
yep,
10 o'clock till 12 o'clock. The wind is going to increase between 100 kilometers to 180 kilometers, and that's there is a threshold of that. And once it crosses that threshold, it means it will not be safe for the people within the building to go outside. So within this app, we created an external emergency, which means you guys are in lockdown state now for next two
yep,
hours or
yep,
next 4 hours.
understood.
So it
Yep,
was it was dependent on, yes, one external data which is coming from a valid source, but then that communication between the people who are making the decision within the building and the people who are living in the building, they already know, do not go outside unless
yep,
there is a real emergency with your life or life threatening situations. Do not go out. And that communication was communicated to them through our app, and people knew not to leave. They also reported within this app, they also reported how many people are already in the building and how many people are not in the building. So they can keep a call, they can give a call to people and say, welfare check, where are you? Are you inside? Can you come out? Come inside. Or are you staying at home? Are you working from home? Is your home in the safe area? So all of that communication happened like almost flawlessly, just because that app was available.
fantastic. This is awesome. How tech has advanced. My God, it's incredible. Ah, fantastic, Rashid. I mean, so impressed. I mean, I was impressed when I was talking to you earlier, but this is amazing. So, something like this is what you will also have whenever there's bushfire next year, or it normally doesn't happen or you already have a system for bushfires in Victoria and all parts of Australia.
Bushfires work very differently. So Australia has got a different bushfire alarm and early warning system, because
Yep.
bushfire does not give you enough time. So
No, it
once
doesn't.
it hits, it doesn't give you enough time to respond. So you have to be early prepared so that our data or our system is a very real-time information. That real-time information can come to you, but there's already other apps within the state. So that's a state limit. So state has a control over that emergency, and they usually have a state emergency response process and plan. So that helps people to navigate through because they know exactly where to go, where not to go, because people might be traveling away from bushfire, but they don't know
Yep.
they might be traveling towards another bushfire.
Towards, yep, yep, absolutely. Yeah.
So there's a lot happens within that space. Our app or our system is predominantly aligned with building communications. So we work
Okay.
with buildings. So all the buildings, and then you can create that buildings into a bigger scope, and then you can create a small city framework as well. So we are building and city, mostly that's where our remit is, building communications in emergencies.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, you've just told me about, okay. What does being named the Startup Executive of the Year by the CEO magazine mean to you and your team?
Yes,
It's
well,
so incredible.
it's been a long journey. We established uh, we started working on the evacuation idea since 2014, and by 2019, and there was a lot of hiccups, and I would say there was few points of time within this journey when I said I think I can't do it anymore. It's just too much. There was so much emotional energy and finance and so much happening in that space. Then I said I might I probably give up on this one because I should probably concentrate on something different. But then there is something happens in life, and I would probably mention that incident. And the people who are involved in that incident, they might understand what happened. So Burke Street incident. If you are from Melbourne,
Yes.
you will know that on the 20th of January 2017, that incident happened where someone recklessly drove a car onto Burke Street.
Yep. On the footpath. Yep.
And because of that, there is 6 lives were lost. I was maybe 5 minutes away, hardly 5 minutes away from the incident, becoming a victim to a responder. So it was that time because we just came out from lunch as a team lunch, and we just entered our building. Our building used to be at the corner of William and Bird,
Yeah.
and we entered our building, and straight away we heard this gunshots and fires, and whatever happened at that particular area. We came outside, and by that time I was kind of a little getting tired to whether should I pursue this journey or not. But that incident kind of re-triggered the purpose, and it said, kind of screamed in my head and said, you can't stop now. You If you implement your app, that you can have an external emergency and you can tell everybody not to go outside in a case like this, because we are real-time emergencies
Yep. Yep.
communication. And if you can communicate to people not to come out, you can probably save one life. And that's all I mean. If I save one life out of
Absolutely.
my app, I think my 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 app is paid. I have served my purpose. So one life only, if we could save by using this technology, I think I'll be pretty happy and pretty proud,
Yeah.
and I would know that I have left something really beneficial for this world. So the journey
I
has been that way. So 2019, I quit the job and I said, now I need to concentrate, focus, and give all of my energy to evacuation. And then 2020 hit, and there's
and
an
then
interesting
COVID
part.
came.
That's right. In 2020, I actually wrote an article which was published in journals in New York, and I kind of anticipated. I was one of those people who anticipated that there's something coming. There's something bigger than we anticipate is coming. And my article was published on 20th of January, and COVID hit in March. So
Yeah. I took the
as
last flight out. Yeah. That was the last time I saw my dad.
yeah,
I literally saw him for 12 hours and I was back because I went to see him. All flights, Australia, India closed its airspace. Australia closed its airspace. So I literally saw my father for the last time, and that's it. 2022, he was gone, couldn't go. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, no, but there's a lot of stories out of COVID as well, and there is
Yeah,
stories of learning, stories of resilience, stories of how we can effectively engage with communities. How can we do things
that's
better?
how my chai chat community came up during COVID because of vaccination and the efficacy of it. But yes, so in
So
January,
so I started to get a lot of nomination and awards from 2020 onwards. I was named one of the top 50 professionals in Australia in 2020, and I was awarded that award in 2021. I also won a lot of recognition through that. But winning the Startup Executive of the Year in 2023 was so important for us to get recognized in Australia, and as uh, an immigrant, it is so important for all the community to say, we started something. Some of us have took the brave journey of creating their own path, and then they reached uh, at a point where they were recognized from the society, and that's giving back to our community,
absolutely.
helping our community back by having that diverse or a different thought process or different mindset, and that's what gives back. As an immigrant, I'm really proud of that event and that moment.
And something to be very proud of. I mean, not everyone gets listed in the CEO magazine, so that's amazing.
Thank you.
Um, so how does all this recognition, how does it affect your company's future and your company's future direction and its goals?
What it has done, because we already were started to get that traction within the market as well. People started to know us. We now the industry have started coming to us. So when I say industry, like let's say construction industry comes to us and say, can you develop an emergency management solution for the construction sector? So it's not one construction company comes to us; it's a
Yeah, I
construction
understand.
industry as
Yeah,
an industry comes to us. And I think that's the biggest game changer for us, because now we can develop solutions which are tailored for that particular industry and can help resolve the issues they are feeling or facing in emergency management communication, because everyone does. They still, as I said, we're still relying on a 100 years old communication system or the system of emergency management comms. uh, if we can evolve in that space and then help an industry to overcome that problem, I think that's the biggest game changer for us and for emergency management sector. And that's what we're trying to do now. After getting those traction from the industries, we started developing products which are industry specific. Now they have, some countries have actually started, the governments have started coming to us and say, can you drive something or deliver a solution which is a lot bigger, which can safeguard one of our big cities. And we are moving into that direction now. And because we are proudly Australian owned, I think we can, in the future, we can go back to those countries and say, this is Australian product, and make Australia more proud of their migrants and the new communities who are coming in and building this future every day.
do you think you'll develop something like this for Pakistan? Do you think it'll be successful?
Uh, yes, absolutely. And for India as well, we got some communications happening in that space as well. But we need to develop before you develop a system, you need to develop the policies and the frameworks behind that. So whenever I go to any organization and they call me up and say, can you help us in some way? And I say, you want the solution or you want the complete solution? We can give you the solution, but if your policy is not aligned with your policies and your procedures, I think it's not going to work. So what you need to do, you can give us, so we give them that low hanging fruit of going through their policies and see what is in there which we can enhance. When we give it, to be very honest, we don't actually get a lot of money of that. We just help them develop those systems at the back end, and then we give them the solution. The solution can work effectively. The same thing goes with the governments. So when a state government within India as well, they actually approached us and say, "Can you help us with something?" And same thing happened in Pakistan as well. There's a city who is getting built. They came to us and say, "Can you help us in that way?" And then we asked them to develop a complete emergency management framework for that city before we come and develop that part of the solution. So solution people can adopt, but uh, I can give you a beautiful iPhone, but if you don't have any reception or you don't have any electricity, it's not going to work. So
Absolutely.
first we need to develop. It's just an example. It doesn't mean that.
Yep. Is this after the flooding?
Uh, beg your pardon?
I said, is
Yes,
this after the flooding? Yeah.
it's after the
Because
flooding.
so many lives were lost. So many lives were lost.
Yeah.
It was just terrible. Um,
It happened after the flooding in India as well, and it happened after
yeah,
the flooding in Pakistan too.
yeah, always floods.
Yeah.
And now that I'm talking, this incident that has happened on the train in Pakistan with the Baloch army, or
Yes.
what are they called? Yeah. So, I think with the kind of, and I'm not a tech person, so whatever I say is going to be in very layman's language. I'm just thinking if there was a way of informing the passengers that something like this can happen, would happen, I don't know if there was any intelligence around it or not around it, but it would just so many lives lost there too.
Mm.
I think I was told it was 65 soldiers lost their lives because they were going back on leave, going back home on leave, and they lost their lives. And
Yeah. Because
so,
I'm an emergency management guy, so for me, any lost life is a lost life. I don't count that
absolutely,
as a, as a, as a. For me, every human being or every being, every living being, if I can save anything through my system, and that's where the emergency management sits. They're trying to safeguard environment. They're trying to safeguard living beings. They're trying to safeguard human beings, infrastructure. So there's a lot of responsibility on people in emergency, and that's where our ethics sit. That we
so
need to
it's one
save.
person. You just need to make a difference in one person's life.
That's right. And you can,
Yeah,
and and for me, if I can create that awareness on a broader level and tell people like, do not try to save thousand people. Just save one at a time. You just do your bit and let it cascade, that
absolutely.
resonates with others. And if I save one person and Saleh saved one person, I think we have saved four people.
I agree.
So
That's how I
yeah,
created my podcast because
yeah,
if it makes a difference in one person's life, I've done my job.
that's right.
And this is something I was explaining to an external person I work with, and I was telling him what I do, both on my podcast and in my community work, like I told you. And he said, "But you're a drop in the ocean." And I was like, "Yeah, like me, there are many, many drops. There are many, many drops, and imagine the ripple effect it'll have because you are a drop, I'm a drop. You're a bigger drop than I am, but I'm a tiny one. But I aim to save just one, make a difference in one person's life like you do." And then it just cascades through it, doesn't it?
So if you drop one drop of lemon into maybe a glass of um, milk, it changes the
It
milk, the
becomes,
way milk
yep,
behaves.
yep.
And if you can
It
do
bec-
that, if you can do that and you can multiply those drops with multiple places, I think we can make a change.
that's what we call cottage cheese back home. So not what we get, but I make it at least once a week.
Yeah.
um, so while you were thinking of going into, working for yourself, creating something new, did you face challenges, especially as a South Asian entrepreneur in Australia? And if
I think
if you
any
did,
entrepreneur,
what were they? Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
I think
Not
any entrepreneur,
specifically. Yep.
yeah. Because when we're talking about the entrepreneur community or the startup community, like 95% of them fail. Only 5% survive. And the The thing with startups is only 5% will get the highlight as well. So everybody will think, oh wow, startups are a really good space to be, because 5% are doing really, really good. And out of those 5%, they say another 60% of that 5%, which means if you take a complete total, there's only 2% of startups who survive at the age of 5, which is it's a big number. These startups start every single day, thousands
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly. And after 5 years, only 2% of them survive, which is still a big number. And then that number is there because there's a lot of struggles involved. Those 98% did not fail because of one reason. We could be failing on multiple grounds. Start founders might have end up given up on the idea. They have burnout. They have lost the energy. They have lost the passion around the thing. uh, or the investors come in and they become so heavily dependent on the money which is external, and then so there's so many things, there's multiple layers of calling that particular part. I won't call it a failure, but I would call that obstacle. So that obstacle kind of becomes so much bigger than they have to seize the business, they have to stop the business. So I would say it's a failure because nothing is fail if you attempt it. So if you've attempted it, it's not a failure. You learn something out of it. And the same thing happened to us as well. We had a very long journey of, and a continuous journey of.
That's okay. Wait, let's wait for the azan and then we'll
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. Okay, that was just a reminder that the time of the night prayer started.
Yeah, I know.
So as I said, there have been hurdles in that journey as well, and it doesn't. I've always mentioned this, and everyone asks me why you always have to mention this. I said, you need to recognize the way I've been recognized as an immigrant coming to Australia, starting something new, develop something, become grow so beneficial for the society and the communities around us. I've been recognized so many times. In all of my interviews, I recognize one person, and that is my wife. Always recognizes because without her support, and she's telling me, yes, you can do it. You need to have faith in you. Somebody who just reminds you every day that yes, I got faith in you, you can do this, is that belief which keeps us going. And there have been moments where I felt really vulnerable, and I think feeling vulnerable is okay.
It's normal.
You need,
Yep.
yeah, it's okay to talk about vulnerabilities. And there were so many times I felt vulnerable, and she always came and supported me and said, yeah, we can do that, we can get through this. And I also wanted to thank my team. Like I got Andrew Stark, Bruce Beasley. These are the people who have always been there when I started my business. I started my business. I shared this idea with these few people, and they always supported me. No matter what happens, they will give me a call every week and say, "Okay, are we on this? We are doing this, right?" And I said, "Yes, we are doing this." Even if I have to, drive my Uber shifts, I have driven Uber to make sure that I got the financial uh, resources to help grow this business, and I've done that. And I can proudly say that because of that hard work, today I survive, and our business survives, and now I've becoming a good little success story for the immigrants.
Congratulations. So, talking Uber, because a lot of international students and migrants who come, like we talked about, qualifications still. I don't know. I came 20 years ago, as did you. So I don't know if it still holds true. Maybe it does. They don't get jobs. And there is no easy way to get a job. And I understand now living here, as do you, for so many years, that you need to get to know the culture because workplace cultures are so different in every single country, and especially from the countries you and I come from. So, what advice would you give to aspiring students who want to get into the tech industry, or even just um, students who come here want to stay and don't get a job, what advice would you give them about resilience, about patience? Because what you've done needed a lot of resilience. Like you said, you drove Ubers, and we know lots of international students do that. It needs a lot of patience, and sometimes you lose faith in yourself because it's a hard road. You don't get rich overnight unless you inherit money.
For the students, I think getting to know the culture is very, very important.
Yes.
It is the most important thing you can learn in any society. Learning how people do things. We come with our own embedded culture, and culture is not a simple thing. It's not a simple philosophy, or there's a lot of subcultures. Maybe I'm born in a different culture doesn't mean that my skin is different. Culture is very different definition. It's a completely different subject as well. So my subculture might also be the same subculture as someone who's living here for 50 years, and he's you know from another background, or from another social background as well. So it could be different, and you need to find the right culture. And how you find the right culture is it's a hard way or a hard work, I would say. But if you work hard and to find the right people around you, try to network around the people who you think are kind of motivation to you, or they can be people of value, and then you become the person of value in that room, because you have something special in you. You have something which has been part of you. You just need to figure it out. What is that one thing which is so good in you, which can become valuable for others? And I think
Or
that's
unique in you.
unique. That's right. So, and that uniqueness could be your strength. So when I started, like I always tell this story to some of the people who are upcoming speakers. When I started speaking, I thought, my accent is just a little too Indian, and then when I talk, it
To
might
South
sound
Asian. All of
very
us speak with the same accent, very
yeah.
South Asian.
So it's very South Asian. And then when I was getting taught, I did a protege program from Speak Institute, and when I was getting taught by Sam Cothon, who was my mentor, and he said, what you think is your weakness is actually your strength. Because if there's 50 people speaking in a big speaking conference, and they all kind of speak the same dialect or same kind of
Yeah,
style
the
of
same
speaking,
accent, yes.
same accent. And if you speak in there, people will remember you by your accent. They
Yeah.
might remember your message by your accent. So use your accent to your advantage. So that's the same thing. You need to use what's good in you. And you might not realize that. Some people might have to say, okay, you do this thing really, really well. And why don't you try it out? And then once you find that real value in you, and then you got that value, you can distribute it for others for free, some places for free, then you become the person of value. And that's what you should aim to become. Even if you're a student, if you're a migrant, if you become a person of value, then yes, success is like right there
And,
somewhere.
and success is very relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, my success is I enjoy what I do, and it's got nothing to do with money. The fact that I do my podcast most weeks and I help women, I write books for a cause. Your success is you do TED Talks. You've developed an app which is saving lives. I mean, success for us, for all of us, are different. Some people
Yes.
want to buy a Maserati. That's not what I aim for, but that's okay. That's success for them too.
Yeah. So everyone has a different definition of success. For me, the definition of success is if if people around me are not successful as well,
Yes.
for me it's not success. So if I can enjoy a cup of coffee, and the person who is right next to me, who's been with me, or in that camaraderie for so long, and if he can't afford to have that cup of coffee, I have kind of failed that person. So I have not achieved that success, which means there is something missing somewhere. So for me, society as a whole, if it doesn't succeed in doing something good, then they are not successful. So for me, the definition of success is different. And as you said, it's very relative.
Thank you, Rashid. This has been so lovely chatting with you. I hope we meet one day and we'll have coffee. Maybe we'll meet at some iftar, or maybe somebody will invite us to Eid, and you will also be there. I remember last year I went to an Eid party, and there were like hundreds of people, and out of which I knew 20. I had no idea, but yeah, they had come to my podcast. We had just met just randomly, and I met them. So maybe that will also happen. Thank you
Hopefully one day.
again. Inshallah. Good night. Take care. And
Thank you.
Ramzan Mubarak again. Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Bye.
me. Bye.